Hello and welcome everybody to the Reinvention virtual chat and to the Power of Reinvention podcast. I am super excited to have everybody here today. This is our second show of 2022. We are starting this year off with a bang, a lot of excitement, a lot of fun. I think people are very energized to really fulfill some of those reinvention and resolution commitments that they were making early in the year. I feel like people have had a lot of time to reflect on what they want to change in their life over the last couple of years. Sort of a gift that I think will keep on giving, and something I speak a lot to in my book, Reinvent Your Life. What are you waiting for? I have lots of beautiful tabs on here because I love to mark passages that I think really resonate, not only for me, but for others. And Marvin, I know you have that in your hands as well. And I wanted to actually open today first by welcoming my amazing friend and guest, Karen Moore. Say hi, Karen.
Hi.
We're going to get to Karen in one moment, but I just want to read a small passage today from the book. As many of you know, I launched my book right at the beginning of the pandemic 2 years ago and had to cancel and postpone all of my book tour events, book parties, book signings, bookstore programs, everything that was on the docket. Had to reinvent my own book marketing plan for my book, and decided to bring the Reinvention virtual chat to all of the people that were interested, intrigued, or potentially intrigued in understanding how to take a part of your life, any part of your life, and reinvent some part. Look at it more carefully, more thoughtfully, take time to reflect on who we are and what we're really looking for out of life, and how to put some of those power tools to work that I mentioned in my book. There are incredible stories in there. So this has been an amazing 2 years full of incredible conversations, interviews, inspired and motivational tidbits and nuggets from all of these incredible people that I've interviewed. So I'm so thrilled to have Karen on today, and you will understand why shortly. I'm going to start with a little reading from my book. This comes from chapter 3, which is Hello, are you still in there? And it's under the heading of change. Is it fear or adventure? In my life, change was always an adventure. Throughout my childhood, we moved to 3 different countries and had to start over in new neighborhoods and with new friends, schools, and surroundings. I loved it, and I took on each move with curiosity, a sense of exploration, and an interest to build the next place in my life. It gave me the tools to appreciate new things and get to know something or someone from the beginning. I was a student of the world and exposed to all of the diversities of life, races, religions, classes. It's the fabric of me, all woven together. And when tackling a new project, client, hobby, friendship, I embrace it with this attitude. Not everyone has the same feeling about change and reinvention. The unknown can be a little daunting, but I encourage you to look at the rewards, the upside, and the potential outcome. Take baby steps to get there. Huge leaps aren't necessary. If you're just procrastinating, try not to let your to-dos get in the way of your what ifs. Spread your wings and embrace the beauty and excitement of newness. If you find something you love to do with the same sense of wonder and exploration you experienced as a kid, you'll love what you do with your life. Take it from someone who knows, after 30 years of loving what I do, I'm still reinventing every day. And I thought, what an amazing way to introduce my serial entrepreneur slash reinventor, Karen. I'm so excited that you're here. I want to share a little bit about your background before we delve into this conversation, if I may. So, with over
Yeah.
25 years of promoting some of the biggest names in entertainment, from the Rockettes at Radio City Music Hall, top artists at packed 25,000 seat venues, and the most lavish touring Broadway shows, Karen has a rich background in marketing, sales, advertising, and securing multi-million dollar sponsorships. She's also utilized her talents to affect social change at Habitat for Humanity. Karen has now applied her marketing, negotiation, and interpersonal skills to her lifelong passion of real estate. She's tenacious, resourceful, and always seeks the highest and best for her clients. She understands that buying and selling real estate can be an exciting adventure, but it can also be scary and stressful. She is a change agent, a serial entrepreneur, a great friend, and a former business colleague and consultant to my agency, the SHARPE Alliance. We've been in the trenches, we've negotiated deals, creatively collaborated, and I've watched her grow and build a gorgeous family, business, and lifestyle, not without its bumps in the road. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So welcome, Karen. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be a part of this wonderful virtual chat. And
thank you. No, it's amazing. Look, we have been through a lot together. We have worked together. We've collaborated on things, as I just said. And I've had the joy of having you, which feels like a ray of sunshine in my life ever since I met you. And it's so funny. I was chatting with Karen the other day and I said, you make these incredible videos that you post on Instagram and Facebook as a real estate agent. And I watch them. I'm like, who would not want to buy a house from Karen? You just want to be in her company. You want her to show you the house. You want to get excited. You want to be with her when she hands you the key to that new house that you've just purchased. And you exude a genuine warmth and sincerity and brilliance in all that you do. And I'm very lucky for you to be a friend of mine, and having worked with you and seen that very focused, serious kind of side, it's just wonderful to see. I want to kind of take you back in time a little.
Okay.
I want to know, who was little Karen before I got to meet you many, many years later? But the little Karen, the little girl, the 5-year-old, the 8-year-old, the 12-year-old, did you have any sense of what you might want to do with your life? I mean, I remember, I wanted to be a ballerina at one point. Right. I wanted to be an elevator driver at one point. There's probably a whole lot of other careers that came up at a very early age, but was there something you sort of had a vision of that took you in a certain direction, or you ended up going really in the polar opposite direction? It's always fun to kind of look at that. And this chapter that I just read from, Hello, Are You Still in There? I talk about us revisiting a little bit of our younger selves and really taking a look. Are we living our passion? A lot of people wake up every day going, I'm not doing what I love, and I'm doing what I have to do. And I'm doing it because I've got to get by, and I have all these responsibilities, and I don't dare to dream. And that's not fair. I think we're all entitled to it. So let's take a little walk down that path.
Right.
Little Karen.
Yeah, little Karen. It's interesting because, like many little girls, I had a lot of different things that I was interested in growing up. But I think a lot of things that I gravitated to, and was kind of a thread throughout my whole life, even if I wasn't doing it professionally, is I really loved beautiful things. Maybe that's just, me being a girl and loving flowers and that, but I genuinely loved things that I always made my environments really beautiful. And it was so important to me. And I remember that my earliest memories as a little girl. And I had a godmother who was an interior designer that really influenced me as a young girl as well. And I watched her work, and I watched her love what she did. And that really, when I look back, and we talked about this a little bit, it was interesting because even though I went into this path of marketing and sponsorships and everything else, there was always this little tug. And it started really early, but then, I'd find myself, when I was in New York, at Radio City, I would take classes in architecture and interior design and, feng shui and that kind of thing. And I didn't think anything was connected. It was just, oh, that sounds interesting, or that, is interesting to me. Let me check that out, just as a
curiosity seeker.
It sounded like something fun to do. And I would never connect it to something I would actually do, because I grew up with such a notion of, if you if you did it, needed to have a very practical purpose, and you needed to know kind of the end result of whatever it was that you were doing. And I think that so often causes people to just stop. I
I
mean,
was going to say, don't you think a lot of people kind of really grow up and go through life with that sense of must do, has to
right,
be, if I'm doing this, it's because, oh,
right,
there's got to be a job attached. It's just not something frivolous. I mean, so many people say if they get to go back to school later in life, how much more fun it is and how much more interesting and how much more engaged they are because they're doing it because they want to learn.
right,
They don't have to
right.
learn.
For sure, for sure. And I was so very paralyzed, enjoyed what I did, but at a certain extent, I just wasn't particularly happy in knowing that it wasn't something I ultimately wanted to do. And I think I was defined by my past or my current present, I guess, and what my resume said who I was. And that was, defined me in a way that said, no, you must stay on this path. And, and I think as the years roll on, you start to feel like, oh, it's too late, or I will have wasted my years. And what I have found has been really interesting is I've found that in taking the leap of faith, that it hasn't been wasted years. There's been so many things that I have done in the past that really have helped to propel my current trajectory. And I'm really happy I think that a lot of people will find that to be, reality for them.
Right. It's sad because what really was the impetus for the book that I wrote was this kind of clarity of there are so many people out there that don't love what they do, or they
Mhm.
don't feel entitled to live a life that includes something that they're either passionate about or that they're interested in. And I really sort of set out to find people that reinvented their life at some point because they had that aha moment or an opportunity to realize that perhaps, in fact, there was a way to make a career out of something that they enjoyed. And I think we're seeing a lot more of it now than ever before because the world has changed dramatically in the last 5, 10 years. There are more entrepreneurs that have access to do things because of the internet, because of e-commerce, because of product development, the 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes of fame that people get because of social media that can help drive business. I mean, there are so many more tools, and I think we're seeing a much greater creator community in the world.
True.
And innovation that, I think there is definitely more of it. But I do think there's still a lot of people who are entrenched in something that they're doing because they have to. And they don't realize that they are entitled to do more or explore more or spend 10 years building the blocks to a business that they want to create. It may not happen overnight, but you can take the time and wake up in 10 years and go, wow, I've now arrived and I can or I do.
Right.
So you spent your early years in your career, as you said, working with, in jobs where you were doing marketing and promotion and, the work that we did together for several years was fun. It was, 9 to 5 in an office, 9 to 6, long hours, weekends. We had a lot of fun with what we did, but it was not, as carefree. It was a solid job. At what point did you sort of start to look at your career path and say, this is interesting, but there's got to be something else? And what was the impetus for that?
I think because I was, you called me a serial entrepreneur at the top
Mhm.
and I think that's true because even when I was in those steady 9 to 5 jobs, I was always wanting to know how to do it differently or how to achieve maybe the goal in a different way than has always been done. And where I felt most stifled and most unhappy is when I was in environments that didn't allow me to do that. And
Right.
when we worked together, there was a lot of that creativity. And I think that really was the lifeblood of me staying in that career because when we worked together, for example, it was so much about, all right, how do we how do we achieve this? Maybe in a new and different way. I mean, Quincy Jones in your forward talked about that. I mean, he understood that firsthand. You're like, how can we do this in a way that no one has thought we could do it? And
Right.
I loved that collaboration. And I think, I think one of the other things that kind of kept me back originally too was that notion of, oh my gosh, there's so many people already doing this, right? But it doesn't just apply to realtors. It fill in the blank, right? You could really feel that notion of information being available to all of us, I think is interesting because it also brings to light how many more people do what you're thinking of doing, and it could be a roadblock for you. But I attest that this era of Google and any information at your fingertips has provided an opportunity for us to really show up authentically who we are. And I love that because literally 40% of the realtors are in 4 states, and California is one of them.
Wow.
And there's over 200,000 realtors in California alone. I mean, if that's not a reason to make you run for the hills and not want to do it, I think so. But I think that is true for anything that you might be interested in. Oh, I couldn't possibly be a painter. I couldn't possibly fill in the blanks, right? But I think that notion of how you show up is unique to you, and it doesn't matter how many people are doing the thing that is kind of tickling your fancy. You're thinking of doing it. I think it's a notion of no one is going to do it the way you do it. No one's going to give it the flavor that you give it. And I think that that's, important for, at least that's what I had to realize, that, no one's going to do it like I do it.
Right. No, I love that. And, I pointed to your videos. Look, I could count on 2 hands and 2 feet how many friends or family are in the real estate business.
Yeah.
No one is doing great videos like you. And I'm like, how is it that I know so many people in the space and they're missing the boat? And maybe they'll make videos, but they won't be as cute or charming, or you just have a natural proclivity and you're leaning into it and you're using it to your advantage. And that gives people a chance to connect with you and recognize who you are. And it, as I said earlier, makes them want to kind of go, well, gosh, I want her in my camp looking at a home for me. Like it works for you. And I love that you're pointing that out. How many coffee shops are there? And yet we still see more people opening more coffee shops. You're like, how much coffee can we drink? But a brand, a flavor, a secret sauce, that sort of individuality. And, I want to go back to what you said before about being a curiosity seeker, as I call them. You've always got your eyes wide open. You've always looked at ways to see the glass more than half full and really look at what else there is in life that you want to create around you, that you want to surround yourself with. You have the most amazing husband. He's here on our show today. Hi, Sue. And the most divine son. And you've created such a beautiful life for yourself. But you went through some rough years. You were sick. You had cancer. I was there through that journey with you. And I'm so grateful that I was able to be by your side as your friend. And, I think it might have been a moment in time, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, where maybe it did help you evaluate what was going to be important for you when you healed and started to really get better and come out of that. So would you say that that was an impactful moment in your life where you reevaluated what you were doing with your time and how you were spending your time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is one of a key time. I mean, whenever I think anybody goes through either an earth-shattering loss or being on the brink of something that is scary, I think it causes you to reevaluate and also, decide what's important. Kathi, for those of you mean, Kathi was one of the few people who was actually came to my infusion sessions with the chemotherapy and going through all of that. But I think it really, for me, it's interesting because I didn't let the world know that it was going on. I was very private about it. I did not post not one single thing on Facebook, and in fact, we put out an APB to all friends not to mention anything about it. And so I was very private about it, and didn't at the time. I just didn't let it define me, and yeah, at the same time, also was really brought into focus how precious life is and how short it is, and at any time it could be gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think, for so many, look, even for me being close to you and going through this with others, those moments in life where you just go, wait a minute. We've all gone through it in the last 2 years. You never know in any given moment who's going to, stop the train, stop the madness, pull the rug out from under. Things can change on a dime. So how are we living this one precious life? How are we choosing to spend our time, and who are we choosing to spend it with? And how are we taking that curiosity or those interests or those things? I mean, look, fear is such a big thing that inhibits so many people from taking a step. And I want to talk about that for a moment, because you spent years working with Habitat for Humanity. You did incredible things. You impacted so many people's lives in such incredible ways. And then there was a moment in time where you just thought, you know what? It's time to move on. I'm ready for the next thing. But there is always some degree of fear. I mean, I love
Sure.
change. We talk about change. This is kind of the theme of today. Change for me is adventure. When someone says, I'm leaving a job, I'm going to do this, I get really excited. I become the cheerleader of change. That is no question about it. And I spent my life moving from place to place, and change was an adventure for me. And it was never fearful, but for most people, it's fearful. So what were those moments like for you? What was it, fear? And how did you kind of overcome that? Oh God, what am I doing? I'm crazy. I shouldn't, I should.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I just put one foot in front of the other. I mean, I think that I had to listen, getting on camera and doing those videos, that is completely to my core, and terrified.
I relate.
Terrified.
I totally relate.
But I'm doing it, and then just the act of changing and doing something that I hadn't done, and being over 50 and saying, okay, I'm just going to leap into this whole new career. The fear, is there, was there, continues to be there. And for me, it wasn't about, okay, seeing that end goal. It was about just putting one foot in front of the other and doing the next right thing, and researching and understanding what other people who are successful, what they're doing. And maybe that can provide, some light on some things that I could do, but still do it in my, authentically, that's authentically me. And ultimately, I realized that I getting to my why was so important. And the big thing for me that drives me every day is I want to genuinely help people in real estate, because it is something that is very scary. There's a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of people have a lot of questions, or they think they have all the answers and they don't. And there's just, it's a process that I want to help people through, and I'm passionate about it and I love it, but it's really something that is not done without some kind of fear.
Right. And one step in front of the other. I mean, I think the ability to do that and recognize the why, that will always pull you through. If you really sort of go back to why you're doing this, and weighing the risk versus the reward, and recognizing with each baby step that you take towards something, whatever that goal is, if you can recognize the value of what you're doing for yourself, you're not denying yourself of something else. You're actually creating something new and wonderful in your life. And that is a gift to yourself. Have there been mentors along the way, especially as you've gotten into the real estate space again, kind of foreign territory for you to kind of delve into a whole new sort of industry and way of putting yourself out there? I mean, you have to market yourself every day in that business.
Every
So,
day. I mean,
yeah.
I was very fortunate that I was, while still at Habitat, I had gotten my license and I was practicing it, but it was something that I have really looked to some incredible mentors that are doing it far and beyond what I'm doing. And I look to them. I look to them as an example and an inspiration, and not in any kind of threat, but just, somebody doing it differently than I might do it, but providing inspiration for me in showing up in the way that I can uniquely do that. So yeah, absolutely.
And those mentors come in all shapes and sizes. I mean, I had an interesting conversation with someone the other day, and they pointed out the value of mentors who are younger than us. We tend to think of mentors as being older and wiser, and there are those who are younger who have a purview of what's going on at a different level in the world that we can all learn from. And I think that that's something really interesting for us to be more open and more mindful to, and how we
Sure.
can be mentors to others in different ways, and how giving that is to actually be able to do that. It's an amazing feeling. What about failure? Failure sort of goes hand in hand often with fear. It's the fear of failure, but failure is a word that people so often say, I would do that, but I'm afraid to fail. I would take on that new career, or I'd explore something, but if I fail, what am I going to do? How are people going to look at me? How am I going to look at myself in the mirror? How do I pick myself and move on? I don't know if I can point to anything you've done that's ever, been that moment for you, or if you recognize moments where you go, gosh, I can't let that noise affect me. But is it something that
Mhm.
you ever sort of combat or look at, or even, with your son that you're trying to teach him to sort of see the positive side, the learning lessons? I mean, goodness knows, we probably talk to our children every day that about that.
Right. Yeah.
But is it something, and I feel like I bring it up because I feel like a lot of people have that fear, and it sometimes is what stops someone dead in their tracks from possible change in their lives that could be good for them.
Yes, I do. Gosh, scared every day. Am I doing the right thing? I mean, you bring up our children and everything. Stu and I have a 12-year-old, and, and it's always that's one of the things that was interesting to me. He actually was part of the impetus for me making the change, because I felt like I wasn't being a good example to him in terms of living living and doing what I love to do. And in him seeing me being unhappy every day, and what is that saying,
Wow.
saying to him,
Mhm.
and how am I reflecting back on him? And what am I saying to myself every day that I'm doing something that is, completely fulfilling me? Of course, I found areas of joy, right? Find a way to make it palatable and workable, but that, I think the desire to do something that I really loved, um, overtook for me the fear of not doing it,
Yeah.
the fear of the what ifs, and the fear of, what about this whole career that I've built, and all the contacts and all the knowledge and all that, it'll all be, that the fear of that actually
Yeah.
became less than what was more important. Like, how am I showing up for my kid?
Wow.
How is he seeing me in, in the world, and how it is that I am choosing to live my life. And what is that? What am
What
I,
example? What is the
what,
example? Yeah.
what's the example? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. It's such a powerful statement, and it's such a powerful point of view to be able to become that self-reflective and make sense of that and then do something about it, because I'm sure many of us think that we know, that we understand, we're going, yeah, me too, but
Mhm.
still, what is that pivot? And then of course finding something. You said that you sort of love the notion. I think there was some part of real estate that kind of always
Mhm.
intrigued you. And was it, what was it that got you into that space? Like, was it because, I mean, with Habitat for Humanity, you were going in and out, if I remember, of like estate sales and people's homes and collecting
True.
stuff, right? I remember some of
Uh-huh.
that. So I don't know if
Uh-huh.
that's,
It's
everything
true.
that you did, but I just kind of remember that was part of what you were doing. And I was like, wow, you're going into people's homes and going through their estates when people had passed on, I think, and being able to pick and choose things that they wanted to donate maybe to Habitat for Humanity. And,
True.
I loved
Uh-huh.
always going into houses and looking at houses every time we moved, and we had to look at new houses to live in. And so I was always intrigued with houses and real estate. So never thought of it as a career for myself, but I could
Right.
understand where there would be a natural proclivity to go there. So what was it like? When did the light bulb go on that real estate was kind of something that you were going to kind of suddenly start doing as a career, when you were having these sort of aha moments, recognizing that you needed to do what made you happy?
Right, right. Well, a couple things. It's interesting because you talked about the estate sales and going to people's homes, and what became, which I always knew to be true, but became even more crystal. You cannot take it with you. And people say it all the time, but the material possessions and the stuff that we all kind of collect,
Collect.
then
Yes.
and then you pass on, and there's all this stuff, and it really, uh listen, and I'm no stranger to beautiful things, and I love beautiful things. But it really crystallized for me that the stuff was not where it was at. So in doing that, I was like, I wanted to clear everything out every time I came home from an estate sale.
Right.
My own home. But from a real estate perspective, I think I think through my whole life, I mean, as an adult, I should say, when I lived in New York City, and I lived in Miami, and I lived in Houston, I lived in Ohio, and lived in, I lived in a lot of different places. So every place I lived, I always helped, even if they didn't ask for my help. Was all in people's business about, oh, you looking for a place to live? Let me help you.
Wow.
Just something I gravitated towards. I loved doing.
Yeah.
And I think I was helpful for most people.
That's great.
It was not something that it was a career. I just genuinely loved it. And
Yeah.
um, helping people find that place and being part of that journey, and that they resonate with, that's like the perfect place for them, and maybe not completely perfect, but you see how you could make it, perfect. So I have one of my clients on right now. Hi.
Oh,
and
lucky
I had,
Chris.
and Chris, we had a good fortune of working together, and I really loved the process of helping them find
Yeah.
the pandemic, and ways that they could make it their own. And I just think I've always loved that. And it wasn't until later on that I thought of it as a career, but I kept putting it aside.
But I think that's a really important point, and that was
Yeah.
kind of what I wanted to get to. It's like you had this passion, you kept saying, no, I've got this job and I've got that job, but there was something intriguing. And I think we have to start at some point really listening and hearing that voice inside us.
Mhm.
And when we feel this kind of tug on our heartstrings, we look at what everybody else is doing on social media and we go, I wish I could, or lucky them, or why aren't I doing that? And we all do that in one way, shape, or form. And social media does not help.
It does not
Maybe
help.
it does, because it also helps remind us, if we're not listening to ourselves, those friends of ours out there are reminding us of what's possible.
Mhm.
Now it's incumbent upon us to take that step, to understand that we are entitled, to allow ourselves that journey. And whether it's, a 5-minute reinvention or a 10-year reinvention, you can put the money in the coffee jar every week instead of going to Starbucks, and you can start saving money. And to your point, you brought up Google before, and you can go online in your pajamas at 2 o'clock in the morning and research how to do this, how to find that, how to write a contract. There's a lot of ways to gather the tools that we need to give us the confidence to go, wow, if I was really going to take this seriously,
Mhm.
and I did a little bit every night for an hour or on a weekend, or ask somebody to take the kids, or, where there's a will, there's a way. So we
Right.
can all make all the excuses we want, and all those voices and the naysayers around us, whether it's in our head or externally. When we want something, if we're really genuine to ourselves, we can create it. It's a
Right.
question of how long, when, who we need to surround ourselves with. And it just excites me, having just seen you for lunch a couple of weeks back. And I know your energy. I know how much you love and are excited by what you're doing. And I want people to hear this. I want them to learn from it. I want them to understand that whatever that passion is that you're trying to bring into your life, whatever that change is, that, it's the beginning of the year. It's a time when so many people have thought about, okay, this is the year that I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, right? And this is the year that I'm finally going to tackle X, Y, and Z. And, why not? Why not?
Right.
And I
Right.
think you even said something earlier about, we sort of, there are breadcrumbs in our lives, and we need to sort of really take heed to what they are. And, those are hints of the things that we could be doing, that we may want to be doing and do a little bit more of, or invite into our lives and delve into them and take risks and take chances, and not be afraid of
Mhm.
the potential failure, and not be afraid of what the outcome is. If nothing else, we've learned, we've either come full circle and we learned something about ourselves that we thought we wanted and didn't. And a few stories in the book that actually talk to people that went on that journey, but they felt like they checked a box. They were like, I thought that's what I wanted to do. I found out in my journey that really isn't what I want to do, but it was a learning lesson. And I feel really good about where I am now, versus
Mhm.
wondering for the next 30, 40 years, gee, should I have done X, Y, and Z?
Right.
And I think you genuinely, are exploring, and God knows what the next chapter is going to be for you. you know?
For any of us, right? For any of us. I mean, I think that that's, and I think if someone isn't really knowing what that, where that direction is, or that end goal, I would just say, just do something that sounds interesting to you, or something that, like, take a class that it would be fun. And I really believe in, this might sound a little woo woo, but the raising your vibrational frequency. I think that goes a long way to leading you down a path. And even people like that you mentioned that went down a path that ultimately was not where they wanted to go, I guarantee you that they met people, they picked up skills along the way and knowledge along the way that helped them into the next thing.
100%.
I love that notion, because there's some things a lot of things that I've done in the past, and I had no concept that it had anything to do with anything. And then it was just, I was doing it because I loved it. And it later presented itself as being, oh gosh, that knowledge. And I've also made the mistake, not to say pat back on the back. I've definitely turned away from things and said, I'm not going to do that. I don't see the reason to do that. I don't see the end goal or the purpose of doing that. And later I find, oh, had I done that, I would now have that knowledge, or I would now have that experience. And I didn't do it because I was, afraid or didn't see the reason or the purpose. So I think if there isn't a straight line for doing something, I think joy is a great reason.
Love that. It's funny. I was just about to ask you in my final question. I was going to ask you, what would you tell your 15-year-old self? And I feel like you just answered it. Look for the joy. Look for the joy. You know, what is it that you say to your 12-year-old son? And as you said, you know, it was such an impactful moment to know that he's going to look to you as an example of how to enjoy the life that we live. And I don't know if there's any other advice that you would have given to your, or would give to your 15-year-old self, knowing what you know now.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think, you know, some people call it following your bliss, but I think it's just do what makes you happy. And I think that is way more impactful and important to, you know, opening yourself up to your life's journey and what you're supposed to be doing on this earth, in this precious life that we've got. And I think that you don't have to know all the answers. You've heard doing what you love to do, and you'll see where it leads you, you know?
I love that. Karen, I want to thank you so much for being on my show today, for being a part of my life always, and for our friendship. It just makes me so happy to see what you've created, what you're doing, what you're going to continue to do. And thank you for sharing some of these incredible nuggets of wisdom and inspiration and motivation for our guests. I want to thank everybody for being here. We're going to go into a Q&A on the virtual chat, but I'm going to sign off for our podcast guests. So for those who want more information, please look in the show notes. You will see details on how to reach Karen, both at Corcoran, the real estate company that she is with, and how to reach Karen on LinkedIn. And you will, of course, find information on how to go to the reinventionexchange.com, where to find the book, other blogs and content that we create all the time at the Reinvention Exchange. So I thank you all for being here on the podcast today, and happy reinventing. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
And now we are off podcast, but still live on Facebook. And I just want to open up the conversation to anybody who might have a question, a comment, anything they want to share. We've got about less than 5 minutes, 5 minutes-ish. Marvin, hi.
Hi, Kathi. Great job, Karen.
Oh, thanks.
You talked about all the things that you've done training wise and the different, activities and the different successes that you've had. And I truly am aligned with what your statement is about training and practicing for your next greatness. And, my training and involvement with Kathi has definitely led me to my most recent partnership, and she has a lot to do with the success of it. So I thank her in advance and ongoing.
That's amazing.
My question is, you took a class on Feng Shui.
Yes, I did.
Probably before people knew what either of those two words meant.
Right.
So is there an inner you that was looking for something else, or you just thought that was kind of an abstract adventure? Was there really, like you said, you're results driven? Was your reason for taking that for that, or was it a different motivation?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I studied with this feng shui master with the intention of becoming a feng shui master consultant. I wasn't quite sure, so and Kathi knows I am just this entrepreneur where I take this class, and it wasn't just like one class, it was a whole thing. And I was creating marketing materials. I was, I was leaving brochures at my acupuncturist, office. I was, creating a website, and, it was a whole thing. And with the intention of maybe this is what I'll do. But what I didn't realize is that it was just one little nugget or breadcrumb that said, these are the things that you're interested in. You're interested in, creating those inviting home work environments.
Mm.
I think that just was part of the real estate picture. And I still pull on that knowledge, but it's not like I want to go and, and feng shui your home tomorrow,
But I bet when you
Thank
walk
you.
in a room with your clients and you go, look,
Yeah.
I think that'd be amazing. You put the bar there and you do this.
Oh, I
that,"
immediately,
and
I
all
go,
of
okay, this
that.
is where you're going to put the bed. And this,
Right.
I do all of that. I'm decorating their house, and it's more than decoration. Like it's about, I go, no, you can't
Right.
fix.
No, you don't put the couch right there. That doesn't, that blocks the room. That's not good for the energy. Like you just know instinctively.
Oh my gosh. I was helping a landlord with this rental recently. And I was like, you need a fountain in that corner. And he's like, a fountain in the corner. Really? I was like, and I didn't win that one, but I just gravitate towards, I was like, it will help.
Right. You need it. Trust me. I love it. Thank you, Marvin, for your
Thank you.
question. Before we sign off, unfortunately, we do have to end a little early today, but I just want to check if anybody else would like to share or ask or comment on anything we talked about or anything else, Karen, that we might not have addressed.
It was great.
We're great.
Time.
We're
Thank you
great.
so much for inviting me and
Thank you.
part of this amazing thing that you have created.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I love it. I love
it
it.
gives me joy. And especially in the last 2 years, I mean, talk about, the connection, the community, I think the personal and the business therapy that has been for all of us to stay connected and to really just help people kind of figure out how to open their minds a little, open their hearts to themselves a little, listen and tune in to who they are and what they want, and know that, we're entitled to live the best possible life. And that is so what I'm here for. That's where I get my joy. And so I'm really excited that you're here, and our podcast is going to come out next week. So we'll share that with everybody as well. And more people will get to tune in. And just thank you, everybody. It's so wonderful to see you. I miss you all on a weekly basis, but we're now every month, and, can't wait to see you all the first week in March. And I thank you, and everybody just have a beautiful day, a beautiful week. Happy reinventing.
Thank you.
And thank you.